celebrating the power of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, John B. Rogers Jr., Part 2.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill. This is part 2 of my interview with John Rogers of Local Motors. I'm geeking out right now. I really am. I'm not saying that you're a nerd, but what I'm saying is that
I'm a nerd.
I am. I'm having the best time. Thank you for being here today.
Pleasure.
So, you've had this fascinating life. You came from a very wealthy family, so you had the luxury of watching your family rebuild itself after losing everything. But you come from a great family that has a great heritage of improving things and making things, right? And so you end up in the military, which is another adventure in
Very
your
much.
life. Make sure you watch part 1 of this interview because it sets it up perfectly. So you end up in the Marines. Were you a platoon commander?
I was. So I started out, had my first platoon, an infantry platoon, and I earned my way into being a sniper platoon commander in my second job.
Wow. It takes a lot to become a sniper.
It does. It's a trade craft. And you mentioned craft earlier. My business now is not a craft business. It's not wistful. It's not anything like that. It's about process, and it's about innovation process, and I believe it can be structured. Being a sniper is a trade craft. It's not a science. It's an art. The great snipers of the world share very much a common background. And
Which is what? What do you share?
So you share an unbelievable ability to bear boredom, punctuated by massively frightful events. And that's what you share. And so it was often explained to me as I was going through training, you have to be willing to be excited as sitting through watching a bathtub fill or watching paint peel on a wall. We train snipers to draw, and they have to sit in an observation post, because your job is not just to shoot and reduce targets, it's also to observe. And you're a scout sniper in the Marine Corps. And so, the other thing you do is that you observe and report. We say in the military, not just in the sniper tradecraft, that your radio is your most powerful tool, because you can call in fire, you can bring lots more assets to bear in a fight. And so we train snipers to draw. The evolution of a digital camera is sort of the worst thing for a sniper, because you don't observe what you're supposed to do. And so everybody learns to draw. And then when it comes to learning how to shoot, that focus of learning how to draw and report on a target is very helpful, because it's like a chemistry teacher. You know your knowns and you know your unknowns, and you're looking to prove out a hypothesis. As a sniper, you know your knowns, there are your unknowns, wind, humidity, what the target's gonna do, that kind of thing. And then you just focus, practice. And you do it all in the Marine Corps in the air of discomfort. So I love Navy SEALs. I especially love our national assets that, live in, Dam Neck, Virginia, or, some place where they fly out on a mission and they get to go do it, and then, they are in harm's way for sure, and then they come home. In the U.S. Marine Corps and in the sniper tradecraft, a real shout out to them, they are not ever in a comfortable place. They hump huge packs, they are alone in teams of 2, and they are gone for a long period of time. My first 2 Marines that had kills in Operation Enduring Freedom, they were doing Overwatch patrols and came upon a meeting engagement with an Abu Sayyaf guerrilla squad, and they weren't in a sniper Overwatch at all. They had their M16 in their shoulder, and they killed the first 2 guys that they came upon, and then bugged out and made it to a helicopter extraction point. They were snipers. Their tradecraft got them where they needed to be, but they weren't in the traditional Overwatch position when that happened. So the training and the focus it's been an honor to have that.
It helps you in business.
It does. There have been many business books written by Marines and by other military folks, and then books written about what's not applicable. What I would say is focus on process, focus on learning, and then learning, how to be patient is important. And as a sniper, you have to be patient and be ready to act when it's time. And so those things are generally very helpful in business.
This is phenomenal. Your life is. We got to make the John Rogers movie, right?
I think I know
who's
wait on
gonna
that
play.
one for a while.
I know who's going to play you, but we got to make this movie. We got to take another break. When we come back, so you do that, but then you end up going to Harvard for your MBA. This is quite a story of possibility. We'll tell you the rest of that story when we come back.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
I stepped into my boss's office. He knew I had gotten that honor, and he said, what's up next, Captain Rogers? And I said, well, sir, I'm going to build a car company. And he sort of was like, what the hell are you talking about?
I just thought about, welcome back to Anything is Possible, and I just chuckle because I just thought about you being a sniper, and snipers have to know how to deal with boredom, so I don't know whether or not you're enjoying this. But that's pretty good. This is John Rogers with Local Motors. So you do that, and not only, so did it prove out what the general told you about, you want to learn to lead, join the military? Did it prove out?
No question about it. So unequivocally, if you want to learn how to lead and you have the opportunity to serve, especially at a time when a nation is at war, which is right now, you have no better opportunity than to go be an officer or a non-commissioned officer, but to have people in your command and to have the ultimate responsibility of deciding whether they have to do something that'll put them in harm's way or not. And that is the definition of asking a human to lead another. First thing they teach you in the Marine Corps is how to follow, and that's the start of learning how to lead.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about the art or the science or both of following.
So as a Marine officer, one of the things you do is you're put in this pressure cooker of, it's boot camp, but it's boot camp for officers. And what you do is you have a bunch of people that are like you. You're distinguished only in that you have a college education and you want to be a Marine. And then you're put in roles where someone's in charge and someone's following, and it's a cluster immediately because everybody thinks they're a leader. And so nothing gets done because everybody's trying to do the top dog job. What you learn quickly, you hope, is that when you're in a position to follow, everything goes well if you can follow the leader. What you hope is they just make a decision. It might be a bad decision, but if they're willing to make the next decision when they realize what went wrong, then you're all going to be in a better place. But you have to do your job. And not everybody gets to be a leader. And being a good follower proves how a good leader can be great. And once you hear that, you're sort of like, yeah, I get that. But living it and doing it is hard.
Were you a good follower?
Yeah, I tried real hard. I'm good at listening to what somebody else wants to do and saying, okay. I'm not good at keeping my mouth shut. So when I see something wrong, I'm good at accepting my knocks. So if something goes wrong, I can live through that. But then I will speak up and say, this is what happened from my view on the deck plates. I do realize that when you're a follower, oftentimes there's just not enough time to see everything. Like you see your color on the beach ball, but you don't see the whole beach ball. And so you have to just always know that.
So what was the point then of the Harvard MBA? Because, you know, leading a platoon is a Harvard MBA.
It wasn't planned, and what happened was I had the honor of, I was in great physical shape and my time in the Marine Corps had done me well, and I had applied for and been accepted to be a Force Reconnaissance Platoon Commander. So that's the job you want as a young captain in the Marine Corps. You get to stay in the infantry, you get to lead hard-charging Marines, and you get to go be a national reconnaissance asset. And I stepped into my boss's office. He knew I had gotten that honor, and he said, what's up next, Captain Rogers? And I said, well, sir, I'm going to build a car company. And he sort of was like, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, how much money do you have? And I said, I have about $8,000 in the bank. And he said, that's not enough money to start a car company. And I said, well, this is my idea. I want to do something where innovation is really happening. We're going to change the car industry. And he was like, that's a stupid idea. But he said, if you are really committed to it, I don't think you should just go out and do it. He said, you've been in the Corps for 7.5 years. You're going to do some reserve time, 9 years total. He said, I think you should go to business school. And I was like, what do I need to go to business school for? I had applied before I joined the Marine Corps, and I had almost gone, and I went to the Marine Corps instead. And I just felt like I was too old. I spent 6 years out before I joined the Marines, and then I had 7.5 years. I was 13, almost 14 years out of school. I just didn't think I had time. And he said, I'm not asking, I'm telling you. You got to apply, because you need to meet enough people that have made enough mistakes that you can learn from them. And so he said, apply. So I applied to Harvard Business School, and I got in. And it was awesome, and it's the best advice I'd ever gotten from someone.
Why was it awesome?
I had 500 cases where we got to see the setup, and then, you know, the climax and the denouement.
So the case study model is the way.
It's the way.
Right,
I
right.
mean, you do need to know the language of business. So,
Right.
you know, you need to know what a balance sheet is, and an income statement, and a cash flow statement, and you need to know those things.
Right.
And it's so helpful if you've actually learned leadership from the ground up, because then you say, okay, I understand that, I understand this, I know how to do that. But you cannot replace watching people step through setup, you know, climax, and then denouement. Failure or success, you got to see them many times over.
So now that makes sense. So how do we get to locomotives?
So I had this idea to
So
do this
can
car.
let me stop you for a second. I want to give you a compliment. You are a fabulous communicator.
Thank you.
Great communicator. Where'd you learn that?
You know, I was, when I was in college, when I was younger even than before I went on the boat, my older brother is a musician, and he went to choir. And so I was like, well, that sounds cool, I'll sing. And so I went in a little boys choir in my hometown, and every Sunday we'd sing. And I think, you know, it's just reading music and getting out there and singing in front of people in, you know, not rock and roll, you know, church music. It helps you to you project, and you have to learn, and you have to stay on tune, and you have to harmonize with other people. And I think that's a building block for being a good communicator. Who's a famous person who said, you know, you can't hear if you're talking. And when you're a singer, you have to listen in order to be able to sing well.
Wow,
So,
you're a great communicator, very good communicator. And because you know the language of two worlds, I would imagine that as you are pitching and as you are bringing investors in, communication it's the thing, because you can have an idea, but if you can't communicate it powerfully, clearly, and if you can't speak the language of the audience, because some audience may want peanuts and the other audience may want data, and being able to know which is which and to be able to code shift, if you will, that's a powerful thing. So then how do we get to locomotors?
well, I mean, for me to get to locomotors, 2 of my friends were killed while we were on deployment, and I had this moment. I had kids at home, and I just said, I could either go home dead, or I could make a difference in the world for them, for their generation, and for my friends who aren't ever going to come home. And I was looking around me. If you go to the Middle East, it's a place where oil sits on the earth. It just costs nothing to bring it up. So there is effectively sort of a natural born wealth creation item that's just pooling on the surface. The problem is that it is wasted on the way in which we consume. We go, we fill up, we do these things. And I was inspired to make a difference in vehicles. There are 300 million cars in the United States, 1 for every man, woman, and child. And we just haven't made them better. Really, truly, we haven't made them better in 100 years. And as a maker, I just thought, if I could apply myself to changing that, I could make a difference in the world for all the people who are inheriting those vehicles, or could make them different. And I just got stuck on that, and I wanted to make the difference. And so I said, that's the business I'm going to go into. I'm going to put innovation on a rapid treadmill to make vehicles better.
So what is a better vehicle?
So that was actually the wrong question at the beginning, but that's the question I asked first. And the problem is that if you think you know what a better vehicle is, then you have to be Henry Ford. And I'm not Henry Ford. But what I had the luxury of seeing is, I read a couple of books which got me onto this idea of, what if I could find Henry Ford every time? And what if the engine that I built was of a business, that kind of engine, was capable of putting his idea or her idea to work quickly? Would that be possible? And that's what's magical about being born at this day and age. Because there's an internet, you have an opportunity to speak to those Henry Fords if you can communicate well to them. And as a maker, what no one else had done, and I really do believe this is, if I have done anything, it's that I was willing to take on the making end of the idea generation. So we live in a service economy in America, which is not great, and there's everybody and their mother's building another app for idea generation. You know,
Right.
I do this, I do that, but nobody's making the stuff. And so I thought, you know, this is the way to do it. I'm going to put micro manufacturing with online web-based co-creation, and we're going to make them happen fast. And that's the business that I built, and that's what Local Motors is.
Let's take a break and we'll come back with our final segment. I want you to, I've been asking everybody to give us a master class in possibility.
Okay.
So what have you learned? Because you're a man of, and I use this word, this would be italicized, but you're a person of great faith. And the reason I know you're a person of great faith, because you're a person of great tries. You try, like okay, I'm gonna go do this, and I'm gonna do, and you have to have a certain amount of faith. So I would love for you to give us a master class in possibility, what you've learned, all these different, strategic inflection points in your life. What have you learned about making something possible, able to be? We'll do that in a moment. This is John Rogers. We'll be back. This is Anything is Possible.
Coming up,
It's the inspiration of possible that gets you through to the next time. And I just despair for the people who don't have that in life.
This is Anything is Possible. Great stories about great people who prove with their lives that anything is possible. And I like to tell people this, John. We only have one story that we tell here. It's the story of possibility. And we just find incredible people to help us tell it, right? And their lives really show that, because I really believe that possibility is what creates everything that's out there. Somebody believing that something is able to be. Like, whoever those people are, they're the ones who change the world, move the world, and leave it better than they found it. I mean, and so this is my joy to have these conversations. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a maker, because like I said, we started in part one of this interview. I'm on Market Square. I walked in and I wanted one. And I'd never seen one before.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that to me, it's like smartphone. I wanted one, I'd never seen one. So sometimes you can't ask people what they want. You have to show them what they want.
Yeah.
So,
if I asked everybody what they'd want, they'd tell me a faster horse.
Micro manufacturing. What's that going to do to manufacturing?
Wow. We started talking a little bit about this idea of, in the early 2000s, mass customization was the thing. That's because we inherited 100 years of mass. So you had to have that word in there, and then I'm going to get a mini, and I'm going to slap an American flag or a British flag, and I've just customized the mass.
Right.
I believe what people were almost seeing, but not quite, is that it wasn't mass, customizing the mass they were looking for. We were at an age where we were about to mass the customization.
Got it.
And that is what's critical. When you have a micro factory, you're not prototyping, you're going to make small runs of different things, and you're going to do that a lot. That's massing the customization. And another way to call it is, we all know what an economy of scale is. It means that you gain an economy by scaling something really big.
Right.
But the other economy that's talked about in your economics courses is an economy of scope. Right. Which basically means that you gain an economy by getting good at doing different things. And so that's what a microfactory offers, is it says, Henry Ford and Frederick Taylor, you can have any car you want as long as it's black, but you go ahead and optimize completely how to make a Model T. I'm going to take what's available to me today, which fairly was not available to him, or to Gottlieb Daimler or Carl Benz, and I'm going to take the tools at my behest, FedEx, the internet, DHL, user-generated content, intellectual property rights, all those things that they didn't even dream of, and I'm going to do an economy of scope. And the microfactory makes it happen. So our microfactories will be, and are already being distributed around the world, close to population centers, and they're capable of doing 3,000 to 10,000 runs of vehicles that are built with exactitude, but ready to change.
Give me a 90-second masterclass on possibility.
I mean, wow, that is a difficult question because it makes me think of all the things about optimism and pessimism, some of which we've talked about. To me, possibility is about making. I've always believed that if I could see it or dream it, that it could be made real. And I think that's in my DNA. And where that came from, I do owe a lot, I believe, to my grandfather and to my grandmother and to my parents of reading books that are about stories and then sending me out to touch, taste, and smell. And so the stories that you read when you're a kid, if you're encouraged to go try and find out whether you could do it or not, it matters. And you know, when you see even stories on TV of like, you know, an astronaut on the moon, or you see somebody as a heart surgeon, exposing children to that stokes that possibility early on in their life.
Yeah, that's good.
And that is what carries me through, because there are tons of dark days in business, and there are tons of dark days being a mother, and there are tons of, and a father, and tons of dark days being a, you know, in the military. And it's the inspiration of possible that gets you through to the next time. And I just despair for the people who don't have that in life. But I think that for me, those were the early seeds of getting there. And then, you know, it's, you know, opportunity meeting preparation.
Mm-hmm. I've heard people playfully say that you're going to be the Steve Jobs of automotives, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, well, Steve Jobs missed the opportunity to be the John Rogers of electronics.
That's
right?
Kind of you. I mean, you know, I share a lot of, I love what Steve Jobs built. I am nothing like him.
Yeah,
you know, I believe in the power of open as a way to solve problems. He believed in the power of closed as a way to solve problems. And so, great businessman, an incredible visionary. I hope my legacy is very different than his, but I'm inspired by what he built.
And that's why I said that, because I believe your flavor of possibility tastes good. Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
This is another person who proves, Exhibit A, anything is possible. We'll see you next time.